Prime time on a Sunday night. Hope everybody's feeling right. Hope you're ready to get into a conversation about an incredible Titans win today, a dominating win today. In fact, as dominant a performance as ever I've seen them have. We'll spend some time going through that over the course of this evening's show. We will talk about the offense. We will talk about the defense. We will talk about special teams because they were well-rounded in, as they like to say, all three phases. It was as complete a game as the Titans have played, certainly this season, and arguably throughout the course of their time under Mike Vrabel in the last 3 years plus. So we'll go through each layer of this game. We'll talk about all three phases of the game, and we will spend some time going through what you liked and what you didn't like about the performance. I don't know if you could find much to dislike, but Mike Vrabel was in a less than satisfied mood after they wound up beating the Chiefs into the ground, basically, which was odd to me, but that's typically how Mike is after wins. Before we get started, I need you guys to share this show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, wherever you're hanging out with us on the A to Z Sports Network. We need you to get involved. If you are hanging out with us on Twitter, go ahead and retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You can get involved that way. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share now to public and get your folks involved on Facebook too. In fact, I'll do it right now with you. If you are hanging out on YouTube or on Twitch, please subscribe to the A to Z Sports channel. Throw us a like on the video. We will be very grateful for your participation and for your invitation to get some more of your friends involved. And now that more people are here, I can go ahead and get the show started. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Sunday night from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford, the best in the business. Two Rivers Ford, where they have the non-commissioned sales staff. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. If you bet the Titans plus 5.5 against the Kansas City Chiefs, where they were inexplicably home dogs, you made a ton of money today, and you probably did it using the promo code A to Z Sports in your DraftKings Sportsbook app. The Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, Gary Ashton, the official real estate agent of the victorious Tennessee Titans, the Nashville Predators, and A to Z Sports Prime Time as well. And of course, if you need to get in your comfort zone, there is nobody who will do it better for you than our friends at Brymak Mechanical, BRYMAK, Brymak.com. So let's go through things and let's get into this game, because it was honestly, I had a lot of time to process what I was watching, because it was almost, at least from a media standpoint, I'm sure if you're a Titans fan, you love to see your team kick the Chiefs' ass, because that's what happened for 4 quarters today. And outside of some garbage time yardage that Mahomes and the Chiefs put up, which was, basically the entire second half was garbage time. This was still an incredibly good, well-rounded outing by Tennessee. And it was almost boring to us in the press box, because we're like, wow, is this what it feels like to cover a team that just comes out and dominates for 4 quarters? Because that's kind of what they did. And they did it in not unconventional ways. They didn't do it in fluky ways. They didn't do it with trick plays. They didn't do it with anomalies. They did it just straight up handling business at home in front of a crowd that was very, very excited to see them string back-to-back wins, massive wins, against 2 big-time AFC opponents at home at Nissan Stadium. So I was kind of going through this, and I was like, well, there's not a lot to dislike about this performance. So what should we focus on instead? And what I came up with, let's just go through every part of the game, and let's talk about what we liked most about the offense and the defense. So why don't we start with the offense? Your Two Rivers Ford take. What most impressed you about the Titans' offense against the Chiefs today? Give me your response on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. We'll talk about it together. The offense specifically, the offense that saw Derrick Henry throw the first passing touchdown, that saw involvement from any number of passing targets: A.J. Brown, Josh Reynolds, Julio Jones, Michael Pruitt, Derrick Henry, Darrington Evans, Jeremy McNichols, Anthony Ferguson, Jeff Swain, Marcus Johnson, all trying to get in on the passing game. This was a well-rounded offensive performance from start to finish. But what did you like the most? What did you think allowed them to have as much success as they did, racking up a 27-point lead in the first half? Give me your answer on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Your Two Rivers Ford take. And while you do that, I'll tell you about our friends at Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford has so many great things for you when you go out and visit them in Mount Juliet. And what makes them so great, what makes them such a pleasant experience for you as the customer, is they do business with honesty and integrity. It's the way they've done it for nearly 40 years in the industry. It's why they're one of Tennessee's most respected brand names and respected family-owned businesses. Two Rivers Ford has been doing this since 1983, and they'll do it into the next 40 years as well. So no matter whether you're dealing with supply chain distributions that make things harder to come by, you're not going to get the price raised at Two Rivers Ford. Whether you go and are looking for a new car or a pre-owned car and something you're not necessarily certain you want to do, maybe you have some ideas, they're not going to force you or not going to pressure you into buying a vehicle that doesn't make sense for you. They're going to make it their stated goal to find you the best vehicle for your needs and for your budget, and at a rate that you can afford. Two Rivers Ford is the best car buying experience around. Go visit them in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So what'd you like most about the offense today? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Chad Hagans wants to know why I'm still at the stadium. I'm going to cop to that really quick because I forgot a piece of equipment. And I was not going to be able, I could have done the show from the stadium tonight, but it just wouldn't have sounded good because the attachment, long story short, I didn't have the proper mic set up at the stadium with me. I don't know why I took it out of my bag. I never take it out of my bag. I did today. So I figured just come home, do the show, make sure it sounds good instead of me doing it into a laptop microphone in a way that doesn't, isn't aesthetically pleasing. Buck, you called it, by the way, says Otis Bibbs. I don't do predictions, right? But Luke Worsham asked me what was my gut feeling today. And I just looked at this and I said, this was an extremely bad matchup for Kansas City. Not just because their defense is bad. The defense is bad on its face. But for the Titans offense against this particular defense, teams that have been able to take advantage of the Kansas City Chiefs so far, before the Titans did it today, the Browns, the Bills, the Baltimore Ravens. These are teams that have a ton in common with Tennessee, the way that they like to run their offense in particular, and why it presents such bad matchups for a defense that's missing a lot of parts and has looked out of sorts all season long. So, I'm not going to say, yeah, I called it, because it could have gone any number of ways, right? I had no idea that they were going to just kick their ass by 24 points. I had no idea that they would be the first defense in the NFL to hold Patrick Mahomes without a touchdown in a game. There's not been another defense to do that, which is insane. Or hold the Chiefs without a touchdown in a game that Patrick Mahomes started. Nobody has done that since he entered the league, and the Titans did it today. So, called it, whatever. I just looked at what the numbers were telling me. I looked at what the matchups, I looked at the film all week long, and I said, yeah, this just doesn't make a lot of sense for the Chiefs to be able to have easy success. I thought that it was going to be a much closer game, and I thought that Mahomes was still going to find ways to make plays against a Titan secondary that was missing a ton of parts. And it turns out that wasn't the case at all. But let's focus on the offense right now. Best defense I've seen in effing years, says Larry Ford. Yeah, we'll talk about the defense later on in the show. That suit today, though, Buck, says Anthony. Yeah, I did look good today. I will take credit for that. That I will take credit for. Not for calling the result of the game, but I will take credit for how good I looked, because I did look fantastic today. It's game day for everybody, baby. Let the man live. Chad, let's see. I gave the KC fans all they could handle, says Cedric. I saw Cedric at the game today. It was good to see him. Absolutely. He's good buddies with Ron Slay, my colleague over at 104.5 The Zone. It was good to catch up with Cedric while I was heading down to see some people in the lower bowl at halftime. Big props to the OC and DC. Great scheme and play calling. And Brennan Conklin wants to know what happened to Julio later in the game. Well, they just pulled him. Right? Like they've done this with AJ. They've done it now twice with Julio. They'll probably do it throughout the course of the season. at this point, and it's going to be something that, you should come to expect. Julio Jones is going to be managed throughout the course of the season, and this is a part of it. He did not, I know he did play a little bit in the second half, but really not hardly at all. And again, I don't think he played a snap in the fourth quarter. But that was they did have success with Julio when he was out on the field, and if they can stagger his workload that way, I think that's great. Balance for Scar is what he liked from the offensive performance today. Chad Hagan says the backups are stepping up. Perhaps J-Rob knows what he's doing. Well, I think John's better than average than his colleagues at what he does for a living. It just doesn't necessarily always look that way. AJ made them pay for selling out to stop Derrick Henry, says Josh. Yes, the play action passing was alive and well. They found great success with that through the air. Ryan Tannehill looked so good. Separation by the receivers for Randy Thomas. I mean, listen, there's a great many things to like out of this offensive performance. And it did remind you, even if they didn't score 30 points, it did remind you that they're fully capable of dominating in the air, fully capable of dominating in the air when they need to, just as you saw in the fourth quarter against the Buffalo Bills, just as you saw against the Kansas City Chiefs throughout the course of today. It just they need their players out on the field to be able to make these kind of plays. But the thing that popped out the most to me was absolutely Ryan Tannehill and his connection with A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown had a great day. He had what has been his best game of the season so far. He had 8 receptions on 9 targets, a touchdown, their second touchdown of the game, 133 total yards, and he had just a massive 46-yard catch that they tried to overturn, or was called initially an incompletion. Then it was overturned and ruled a catch because he did complete the process of the catch. For me, it was Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown performing at a high level together, among many things. I thought the offensive execution by both the play caller, I thought the game plan was good, and I thought the execution by the players was better. All of it worked in concert today for the Titans to be able to get up 27-0 on the Chiefs in the first half and then just kind of coast in the second.
Was it just a matter of you and AJ just connecting these past couple weeks as opposed to in the past?
I mean, we've connected a lot of times over the past few years,
Performances the last 2 weeks have been better than at all this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're improving, right? We're growing as an offense, so we just want to stay the course and keep getting better.
You mentioned growth, but was there anything specific that clicked in this game that hadn't clicked before, you think?
Yeah, I think we made plays. We were able to sustain drives. Your guys were making plays outside. We had some one-on-one coverage, tight coverage, and AJ made a couple huge plays down the field. The touchdown was a great catch. I just basically gave him a chance. It's all one-on-one and said, hey, I'm going to trust my guy. Let him go get it. So it was good to see those plays down the field being made, and hopefully we can build on that.
Season, how big of it for the passing game to really lead the way in the first half today?
For me personally, I was just trying to make a play each and every time the ball came to me. We try to just keep going and wear guys down at the end of the game. We got out to an early league, so unfortunately, Derrick can't break a long run like we would normally see. But he definitely has carried the team. He's going to continue to do that.
Game plan execution is what popped off today for me, and there was a lot of great things to take away, and I know that lumps a lot of stuff into it together, but it takes a lot of things to make that a complete performance, and today was a complete performance by the offense. A to Z Sports Prime Time from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios. Buck Rising here with you, asking you what you liked the most about the Titans' offensive performance before we talk about the defense. Offensive, of the 3 things that allowed the Titans to dominate the Chiefs, first and foremost was game plan execution on the offensive side of the ball. Give me some more things that jumped off the page to you. And while you do that, I'll tell you about our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. An authorized sports betting partner of the NBA is DraftKings Sportsbook, and the NBA is back in our lives. So not only can you bet on the NFL, college football, the MLB, or I guess now the World Series if you're a Braves or an Astros fan. And if you're an Astros fan, there's probably much worse things going on in your life. Whether you are watching any kind of sport, you can bet on it using the promo code A to Z Sports in the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Just like you can use same-game parlays, which allow you to combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout. The more legs you add, the more money you can win. Simply download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code A2Z Sports. Bet just $1 on any NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. That's promo code A2Z Sports this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL and an authorized sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee to bet. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So let us go through these things as we talked about. We've only allowed one sack since Lawan got himself hurt. Being stupid. Well, Levi, I mean, what do you mean being stupid? Like, I know that it kind of looked like he dived at the pile, but like you can't get pissed at Taylor Lewan for getting a concussion. Like, that's such a word that I should not use. Don't be a jerk, basically, Levi, is what I'm saying. Like, you're pissed at Taylor Lewan because he got a concussion. Kendall Lamb went down today and got an ankle. You know what? And with an ankle injury, and they had to finish the game with some dude who just ended up on the roster, I think, on Saturday. So it's not Taylor Lewan. It's really, I saw something today that made all the difference in the world to me. And it had nothing to do with the offensive line. Now, admittedly, I'm not an offensive line expert, but you want to hear why Ryan Tannehill was sacked once today, was not sacked on Monday night against the Buffalo Bills. You want to hear something batshit crazy? Ryan Tannehill, and this is per Next Gen Stats, his average time to throw was just 2.17 seconds. 2.17 seconds. So the ball's coming out and he's throwing it. 2.17 seconds. It's not just the lowest total of the week heading into Sunday Night Football. That's the lowest time to throw of any quarterback this season so far. You know what? Ryan Tannehill heard all of your criticisms about holding on to the ball too long. And he said, you know what? I'm tired of getting hit. Let me get rid of the ball as soon as it hits me in the hands. That's what Ryan Tannehill's doing. So, Levi, don't be an idiot and don't blame or attribute what's happening with the sack situation just to the offensive line. And don't try to be a jerk by piling on a dude who got a concussion, because that is such a rotten thing to do. Look at actually what's happening. Look at the numbers, educate yourself, and then understand that the quarterback took matters into his own hands today. And a lot of that was play calling as well. He had easy access throws. He saw the routes develop. He hit them as they came open. He got rid of the ball in less than 2.2 seconds, like a full 0.03 seconds short of 2.2 seconds. This dude was dealing today, and he was doing it at a rapid rate. He was doing it Tom Brady-esque, where the ball comes out, you get rid of it, and your offensive line looks much, much better as a result. It's just a dumb thing to do when you're doing the analysis that way. Like, I hate when people try to singularly out or single it out in a way that puts the blame on one player. It's never about one player in the NFL. You have to, Levi, I have to assume that you've been watching football long enough to not be that narrow-minded in your analysis. He dove into the pile after the play was over, completely unnecessary. Yeah, who gives a damn? You're talking about something. You're arguing over something that literally doesn't exist, because I just gave you the numbers on Ryan Tannehill and why he's getting rid of the ball so fast. If you don't like Taylor Lewan, I don't know what to tell you, but don't let it color your analysis about what's actually happening with your football team, because you just end up looking like an idiot when you say something like that in a public forum where literally everybody can see it and pick it apart. What else did you like about the offense today? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Billy Jones says Derrick Henry had 29 carries. How many could he want as far as what he was doing? Nate John says he thinks he just wanted his 100 yards, talking about Derrick Henry. And listen, for Derrick, I heard that he wasn't in a great mood after the game, and not because he didn't have enough rushing yards or not because he didn't have a rushing touchdown. I mean, for God's sakes, he threw the first touchdown of the game. He threw the first touchdown of the game. It was an incredibly creative passing play. And honestly, he probably threw the most difficult completion to Michael Pruitt, because he had two dudes, and I haven't gone back and looked at the film just yet. I haven't had time to go back and rewatch the game, but he had two dudes wide open to his left, and he looked for Michael Pruitt kind of leaking out to the right. in the back of the end zone and hit him there. It was a bit of a jump pass, kind of Corey Davis-esque, like Baltimore in the playoffs, the King Cat, as they call it. So I heard he wasn't necessarily thrilled with his own individual performance after the game, and I thought he handled himself like a pro, because Derek has sometimes come to the podium and been, not difficult, but just not interested in being there, right? He's just going through the motions. And instead today, even if he wasn't feeling the best, or even if he didn't think that he personally did the best, he got up to the podium and was like, yeah, walked us through what was happening, talked about how the offense performed as a whole, talked about how it's so important for them to be able to use a multitude of players and not just have him be the focal point. And I thought that was a really, really, it's just, you're seeing, it's just watching the growth of somebody who you've covered since he came into the league, or at least who I've covered since he came into the league, kind of go through that maturation process. And not like I'm not saying that Derrick Henry's immature. I'm just saying that in a different time, Derrick Henry would have gotten to the podium and gone through the press conference as quick as humanly possible, because he wants to get out of here. And I appreciate that he didn't do that today, because you guys want to hear from him too. But for Derrick, the offense, I thought that this is his lowest yards per carry average on the season, 3 yards per carry. He had 29 attempts. He had 86 yards. So yeah, he's probably pissed that he wasn't terribly efficient, but on the whole, that he ended up being the bulk of their workload. He didn't do a ton on the ground, but they didn't need to do a ton on the ground. Now, they still had 29 attempts with him, which if you're not going to do a ton on the ground, then you can give Darrington Evans some snaps. You can give Jeremy McNichols some carries, because McNichols didn't have a single carry. Darrington Evans had 2 for 7, so he averaged just a half yard more per carry than Derrick Henry on his 2 carries. But it's not like Nathan Shiver says it's not like Henry was making reads. Listen, he could have. He just wanted what was in front of him, and I appreciate that. He could have gone through his reads because he had 2 more open. He had time. It was a really, really well-executed game plan, and that's probably the thing that I end up taking away the most about the success of the Tennessee Titans on Sunday. Let us talk about the defense then. What most stood out about the defense here on A to Z Sports Prime Time from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch right after I tell you about our friends at the fine folks at Brymac, or rather the Ashton Real Estate Group of Remax Advantage at GaryAshton.com. Your dream address without the stress is what the Ashton team offers to you. What you can get at GaryAshton.com is the best real estate intel in Nashville as you search for your new home, or if you're trying to sell your home for more. The Gary Ashton team will make sure that you get in the best position to maximize your real estate investment, either as a buyer or as a seller. It's why they're the official real estate agent of the Titans, the Preds, and A to Z Sports Prime Time. Gary Ashton and the Ashton Real Estate Group of Remax Advantage at GaryAshton.com. So let us go through the situation for the Tennessee Titans on defense. What most popped off to you on the defensive side of the ball? Props to Tennessee from KC, says Time Traveler. Well, that's very kind of you. I'm sure the Titans fans in here appreciate that. Chiefs sold out to on the run. They really thought Ryan couldn't beat them. Yeah, well, a lot of teams have tried that. Hell, the Ravens tried that in the playoffs and it worked in their favor. So it's not like it hasn't happened before. But yeah, I think that today was a good example. And also, the Chiefs defense is so bad, guys. Like, it can be that the Titans kicked their ass, but also that the Chiefs defense is, outright rotten, like really, really bad at this point. It is something for Tennessee that it's good that they were able to take advantage of it, because the Kansas City Chiefs played such a poor game. For Tennessee, they had to be able to take advantage of that. Otherwise, they were never going to be able to compete or be thought of as legitimate contenders, at least from my standpoint, because you can't look at the worst defense in terms of yards per play allowed, and you can't look at one of the bottom 5 scoring defenses in the NFL and say, yeah, the Titans, who really don't struggle to score points outside of just today, because they didn't score in the second half. They just kind of went about their business. They bided their time. They bled the clock, and it was done. But they had to be able to capitalize on this today because the Chiefs are rotten, like really, really bad at defense. And it's good to see the Titans capitalize on that because they could have faltered to a degree. It's not like there would be no precedent for them stumbling. There would be no precedent for them. It's not like there would be no precedent for them stumbling against a poor unit, like, for example, the Jets offense in week, what was that, 3 or 4? MB says, yeah, but we're supposed to be rotten on defense too. No, that's not true, MB. No, you're not supposed to be rotten on defense. In fact, your entire offseason was spent trying to make sure that you weren't rotten on defense. That was the whole design. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter today that Patrick Mahomes couldn't get any kind of pass protection and that he was throwing at Greg Maben and that he was trying to get balls off at different targets and that he just didn't have the time because he was getting knocked around by the Titans defense. They had 4 sacks today. It's a season high. So you're not supposed to be rotten on defense. You're supposed to be a hell of a lot better on defense because you paid all that money to Bud Dupree. You invested in your pass rush with Danico Autry as well. Harold Landry's coming on. Jeff Simmons coming on. So no, you're incorrect, MB. They're not supposed to be rotten on defense. And so in fact, quite the opposite. They're supposed to be drastically improved. And what I saw today was a defense that outright won them the game with the way that they performed. Titans capitalized on that, says Time Traveler. Billy Sullivan says Danico Autry was such a disruptive force, and he's been that throughout the course of his time here in Tennessee. In fact, that's one of the biggest losses to the Colts that you could give them, not on a football field. Just taking Danico Autry away from Tennessee or from Indianapolis in free agency did the Colts a world of hurt, as you can see, based on the struggles of their season this year, and did the Titans exponentially better in this regard. So when you look at this and go through the numbers and say, yeah, there's a great many things to be happy about on defense. And I'll tell you what my thing was here in just a second. MB responds, listen to all the major media outlets about our defense before the day. They said we were horrible against Buffalo and we were lucky to win that game. MB, why are you one of these people that cares what? Here, okay, let me start from here. I'm not mad at you. I'm just legitimately, I want an answer as to why you care about the opinion of people who you know don't watch your football team. Like, what is this obsession with the national media? Why do you guys lust after this kind of attention in ways that make no sense? And it's not, I'm not just speaking for me. I'm speaking for, Paul Kaharski. I'm speaking for Teron Davenport, Joe Rexroad, John Glennon, David Beauclair, Emily Proud, Teresa Walker, so many local media people who watch your team every day, go to practice every day, know everybody on the roster, and more importantly, know how to pronounce their names, know who the coaches are, know who the assistants are, know who the assistant special teams coach is because he had to call plays or had to, not the assistant special teams coach, but know who Mike Vrabel's assistant is because he had to literally call or make in-game decisions during a preseason game while the head coach got COVID. And you're telling me that listen to all the major media outlets about our defense before today? Why would I do that? Because I know your defense better than any of the major media outlets. Why would I waste my time doing that? Why are you wasting your time doing that? What kind of logic is that to watch people and to care about people's opinions who you know don't watch your games? Why is this a thing? Why do you insist on doing this to yourself? It's just, at least to me, it seems dumb. Do I sound like an insane person here? Like, am I the only person who thinks this way? And I get you want to turn on Sports Center because everyone, ESPN's the worldwide leader in sport. You want to turn on the NFL Network. You want to turn on Sports Center. You want to turn on Good Morning Football and watch and look and hope to see your favorite team being discussed. Fine, you can do that, but also it's probably not going to happen because they don't play in New York and they don't play in Los Angeles and they don't have Patrick Mahomes and on and on and on it goes. So what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? That's on you, honestly, MB. That's on you for dumbing yourself down in that regard. I don't know why you would want to do that to yourself. It just makes zero sense that would be your approach and your rationalization, for going through and discussing it that way. But anyway, let's keep things moving on A to Z Sports Primetime. What most excites you about the defense? For me, It was the pass rush, because the pass rush kicked ass.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said earlier, I felt like we played defense today, like, just together. You know what I'm saying? I felt like the back end was covering awesome, and I just felt like we were rushing relentless, and that was one of the keys to the game for us on defense, was to rush relentless. And everybody just did their part, and it worked out.
You guys had such a big emotional win Monday night. You come back on the short week, you beat another good team and dominate them. What does that say about the character of this football team?
I mean, the biggest thing for us this week was to validate, I guess, who we are. Like you said, we had a big win against the Bills, and we wanted to come out here and prove that just wasn't no one-time thing. That we're a great. I don't even know what to say. It was just a great team win.
So that is Harold Landry talking about what a great team win it was for the Tennessee Titans, and what a great team pass rush defensive effort it was for the Tennessee Titans today. Again, 4 sacks, a season single game high for the Tennessee Titans. That is absolutely something that is to be, it's shocking basically, because they now have 17 sacks on the season. Do you know how many, and I'm sure many of you probably know, unless you're listening to, national media as MB is, and is probably not aware of how many sacks the Tennessee Titans had in 2020, but not that I'm bitter about it. The Titans had 19 sacks in the regular season in 2020. In fact, they needed, I think, 3 in the final game against the Houston Texans to be able to finish as the team, the only team in NFL history to make the playoffs with fewer than 19 sacks. And they ended up tying the league low mark for a team that made the playoffs in 19. They needed 3 sacks to get just to the league low for a team that made the postseason in 2020. In 2021, they already have 17. They're just coming off a 4-sack performance. Harold Landry has 7.5 unto himself. Danico Autry was great today. He had 2. He's creating so much for all the guys around him. Bud Dupree was effective. Jeffrey Simmons was effective. Autry, as we talked about. You saw good snaps from Ola Adeniyi out there as well. This is as complete a pass rush and as useful and as efficient a pass rush as any we've seen from the Titans since Brian Orakpo and Derek Morgan? I mean, it's been a long time since you've seen guys have success at this rate. Brian Orakpo, Derek Morgan, and Pete Jarrell Casey. That's been some time. And even they weren't collectively this kind of good. Or at least they didn't have a season collectively this kind of good. I don't know that Orakpo did. Orakpo ever get double-digit sacks as a Titan after signing here? I don't recall off the top of my head. Not that I don't think that Derek Morgan and Brian Orakpo were bad players. I just don't think they looked the way that Dupree and Landry have looked at any point this season. Derek Morgan was a solid player. He's a first-round pick. He lasted a long time in this league. Brian Orakpo, the same. They were both good, above average at what they did for a living, but not quite to this degree where you're neutralizing what is one of the most feared offenses in all of sports. You held it to 3 points. He did, Buck. Orakpo did have 10 double-digit sacks while here in Tennessee. Thank you for providing that. But either way, it wasn't anything overwhelming, and you haven't had that since then. Now, there's no guarantee that Harold Landry will get to double-digit sacks or Bud Dupree will get to double-digit sacks. That's not necessarily indicative of overwhelming success. For the Titans, though, this is the kind of trajectory that you want to be on. It could still be better, but right now it's good enough to hold the Kansas City Chiefs to 3 points, and that's what most impressed me about the defense today. Let's wrap things up and get you back to Sunday Night Football in time for halftime with This Is a Free Site, the best thing that I saw on social media this week. Let's go with this. Let's pivot to college really quick, because there was some not very interesting college football games, but we're serving interesting content to result from college football this weekend. Which SEC football coach gives the best quotes? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Which SEC football coach, so that could be Nick Saban, could be not Les Miles. It could be Ed O for however many games he's got left. It could be Lane Kiffin. Which SEC football coach gives the best quotes? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter and on Twitch, and we'll wrap things up together. Indianapolis just took a 13-12 lead. If you're watching Sunday Night Football right now, the Colts and the Niners, man, have really, really struggled to start this season. Colts are 2-4. Niners are 2-3. Not a good matchup for Sunday Night Football, but a pretty interesting one, given that the Titans will play the Colts next week, and they still have a good enough defense to cause you problems. So I wouldn't bury the Colts until after you go out there and, if you're successful, beat them in their house at Lucas Oil on Sunday. Let me know on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. Who's the best quote in the SEC among college football coaches? Give me your answer on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. We'll talk about it together right after I tell you about our friends at Brymac Mechanical, BRYMAK, Brymac.com. Satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. The best in the business is Brymac Mechanical. Commercial HVAC, they got you. Residential HVAC, they got you. Brymac.com is the place that you go for everything that you need and for satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. Chris Hamby, who owns Brymac Mechanical, along with Miss Sherry, family-owned business based out of Clarksville, 3 locations in Tennessee and Kentucky. Chris was texting me throughout the course of that game today and was blown away at halftime about the success that the Titans were having. I don't know if he was at the game or not, or if he was just watching. I should have. That was an important follow-up that I should have asked. But regardless, Brymac Mechanical, big Titans fans and big fans of putting you in your comfort zone as the weather begins to change. BRYMAK, Brymac Mechanical. So, which SEC football coach is the best quote? Let's see. They could be Ed O, says Jackie Holbert, if you could understand what the hell he's saying. But yeah, that's almost half the appeal, right? Is you're not really sure what Ed O is saying, but that makes it a lot of fun. Brent Beard says, Saban, I could give a shit about all that, excuse my French. Yeah, I didn't see that, but that sounds like a Nick Saban quote. Billy Jones says, Kiffin, but I can't stand him. I don't know how people don't like Lane Kiffin. I love Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin forever. Honest to God, I love that he's that big of a troll. He is something to behold, honestly and truly. But I don't think anybody beats Mike Leach right now, especially not when asked about candy corn after just rolling over Vanderbilt in Nashville this weekend.
We talked about on the broadcast how you hate candy corn. What's your favorite Halloween
candy
candy
corn? I mean, I completely hate candy corn. When I was a kid, well, gummy bears. Let's see, gummy bears for sure.
Sour or regular?
The Haribo. It's got to be the Haribo ones. And then the other thing I like is when they used to have the sprees in a box. Outstanding. You have to go to the dollar store to find it, but I do. And then the latest, there's still candy innovation, although a while back I found that Europe had better candy than we did overall because they have gummy everything. And then, they have those Nerds clusters, which is new.
The gummy.
Yeah, which is good. The Nerds clusters is good. And then if you go chocolate, probably Almond Joy.
Love it. Hopefully you'll get some of that next week.
Yeah, we'll see.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you.
That's Mike Leach with as irrelevant a result as could be possible for Mississippi State, just rolling over Vanderbilt here in Vandy. It was a tough scene. Mike Leach, who is just the best in the business, honest to God. I don't know if he's all there. I honestly hope that he's not, because that makes it so much more enjoyable. I believe him to be one of the most intelligent people on a football sideline, but I also believe him to be a bit of a mad scientist. And that's also coupled by the fact that he looks the way that he looks. Mike Leach is tremendous. And I would say to you that for Mike Leach, he's probably the best quote in the SEC right now, whether he means to be or not. That's going to do it for us tonight on A to Z Sports Prime Time. Back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central Time. We'll talk more about the Titans. We'll probably get into the Vols and Alabama coming off this weekend as well. Radio show tomorrow, 10 to 1. We welcome your participation on 104.5 The Zone. We'll be hanging out. We'll be reacting to this game and breaking it down in a lot further detail. Enjoy the rest of your evening, what little remains of it. I'll talk to you tomorrow night or tomorrow on the radio